Vandeham Shri Guru Shriyataf Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavanscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. You want to choose some questions? You want to take you can take the first one. Okay, so there's a question for you specifically.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There are 5 questions here.
There's one specifically for you, number 2.
Number 2, yeah. Should I do that? Okay, you said when we are internally clean, then the external is also clean. Cleanliness is next to godliness. Why is Vrindavan dirty at the outside? I don't remember saying this, but it's true. Vrindavan is externally very unclean. When I first moved to Govardhan, nearly 20 years ago, I was shocked actually, because I saw everywhere there's dust, everywhere there's pollution of various sorts, everywhere there are gutters full of black liquid and pigs running through them, half-dried, crusty pigs running through these things, and everywhere is filth. So I asked the same question, or something similar to it, to my older godbrother, Gopi Paranadhana Prabhu. He had been living there for 10 years at that time. And he told me that this is the arrangement of Yoga Maya in order to keep those who are spiritually unqualified out of the holy dham. Because we see practically, even though it is externally, in terms of sense gratification, it is so unpleasant to live in Vrindavan to the senses and the mind, material senses, material mind. Still, there are people who are willing to go there and try to exploit that situation for mundane sense gratification. If it weren't so, then there wouldn't be 100-foot Durga statues, high-rise condominiums, empty, and other modes of material activities going on in the holy dham of Brindavan. So he gave the example, if you walk into a bank anywhere in the West, you'll find that everything is absolutely spotless clean marble, the way a temple should be. And everyone is on time, and everything works in order, and it's very clean and efficient and convenient. In short, he said, it's very comfortable for the mind and for the body. But if you look inside the people's hearts who are maintaining such establishments, you'll find that it is more filthy than the gutters of Vrindavan in their hearts. And conversely, in Vrindavan, although everything is very externally very dirty and disorganized and unpleasant in so many ways for the mundane mind and senses, the hearts of the Vrajavasis are very pure. And in fact, we will not get the love of Godhead for which we're chanting and serving unless we learn to become as pure-hearted as these Vrajavasis are. Actually, not all Vrajavasis are eternally liberated, although we say like that. Some of them are taking their last birth in this material world before they go back home, back to Godhead. Some of them are sadhakas who have raised themselves to that level. Some of them are nitya siddhas, parishads of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We don't know. Some of them may be demigods descended just to worship the Lord in some inconceivable way. So we have to be very careful about that. But the short answer to the question is that Vrindavan is externally very unappealing because this is Yoga Maya's arrangement to keep out the cheaters who would exploit it. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his Navadip Dham Mahatmyam, has commented on this as well. He said that there's a thin layer that covers the Dham called Prahamaya, and her business is to keep out these characters. I hope that's okay. Oh, there's two of them here for me. Should I take the next one also then?
Yeah.
Yeah. You spoke about different varnas should not mix together. What is with different races like black and I guess this means white here? Well, Srila Prabhupada used to, actually sometimes Srila Prabhupada used to emphasize the fact that in ISKCON we have all different kinds of Vaishnavas, all of them worshiping together. Some of them are Chinese, some of them are Russians, some of them are Africans, Indians, Americans. Everyone is there. In general, distinctions should be kept because distinctions are not only the basis of material sense gratification, which everyone is attached to. Variety is the mother of enjoyment, and without distinctions there is no variety. But for that reason, variety is also the essence of devotional service. You have to have different types and they have to be kept separate. The tendency of the jnanis, and to some degree the tendency of the karmis who are cheaters also, is to homogenize everything. And certainly the tendency of modern life is to homogenize everything, to make everyone equal, to make everything one, to make everyone the same. That's just for the convenience of the cheaters to exploit. Unless the world is culturally homogenized, for example, then it's very difficult to have a ready-made marketplace for the products that you're trying to sell them. That's another consideration. But Srila Prabhupada, as I said, he was very happy to see all different types worshiping Krishna together, and he said this is the real United Nations. I think once, in fact, he even had a wedding somewhere in a public place on stage, and there was
Bombay.
Yeah, this is Vegavan, right?
Vegavan with Padmavati.
So,
He's from Sweden. And
Sweden,
she's from Australia.
and she's Australian. So Prabhupada was preaching. He found a way to preach with this, and he employed it in Krishna service like that. So oneness and difference, they both have to be maintained. The oneness is that we're all serving Krishna. The difference is that we're all serving Krishna in different ways, and that's fine. Even when we go back to Godhead, we're going to find that there are different parties in the spiritual world as well. Krishna is the only enjoyer of that principle. It makes it hard for us sometimes, but Krishna enjoys it. There's more that can be said about that, but I think I should stop here. Okay.
One important qualifier, and just in case everyone starts getting into caste consciousness, is that in Sankirtan and Prasadam, everyone comes together. In serving Krishna, everyone comes together. For social arrangements, there are differences, but
Someone's given me a note here.
But in Krishna consciousness, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Nicha jati nahe Krishna, bhajane ajoga, shatkul vipra nahe bhajane joga, jay bhaje she bara abhakta hina cha, Krishna bhajane nahi jat kul adi bicha. Which means that if someone is socially in a low position, it's not a disqualification for Krishna consciousness. If someone is socially a high position, Brahmin specifically mentioned, it doesn't automatically qualify him for Krishna consciousness. Whoever worships Krishna is great, whoever doesn't is a rascal. That is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's. Yeah, and there's no consideration, in the worship of Krishna, there's no consideration of Jat, Kul, Adi. Although in Gita, Krishna does say, Mam hi partavya parshraja ye pisyu papa yone hastriyo vaishas tata shudras tepi yanti param gatim. Even if low-born, sinful women, Vaishyas, Shudras, if they take shelter in me, Krishna says, they can attain to the supreme destination. And King Puna Brahmana Punya, Raja Bhakta Shayastada, Anityama Sukham Lokam, Imam Prapya Bhajasvama. And then what to speak of the Brahmanas and Kshatriyas, the pious devotees of those sections of society. They're expected, they're more expected in this miserable material world where everything is temporary to worship Krishna. But if anyone does, they achieve the same result. It's more expected that the Brahmanas of Srirangam, by caste, will be more inclined to Ranganatha Swami and the worship of him, and even here, the other castes, they may not be so much. But anyone who takes to worship of Krishna, then they're accepted. Isn't it, what's the word? I don't like to use that word wonderful, because it's everything, wonderful, wonderful. Isn't it nice? How the people here, they welcome and respect our kirtan, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's kirtan. It's very pleasing, is it not? Are we so appreciative of Vaishnavas as they are? We can learn from them also. Okay, questions. Devotees undertake a lot of seva. Yeah, good. And most of the time the sadhana gets affected. Shouldn't be. There should be fixed sadhana. So sadhana and seva don't get balanced. Or doesn't get balanced, as is written here. Don't get balanced. Now the question is, by doing mechanical, inattentive sadhana, does the seva get affected? I don't see how the premise leads to the question. It's if you're doing a lot of service, it doesn't mean that automatically you have to do mechanical sadhana. It's a, what's that called? What's the technical term for that?
Which one?
When you state something and therefore you say, and therefore, but the therefore it isn't based on the premise, sine non qua, something like that.
Yeah.
Is it? So it doesn't, if you have a lot of service, it doesn't mean that I have a lot of service, therefore I have to do mechanical sadhana. Why? There should be a balance. Srila Prabhupada gave the program, morning program, service all day, and evening program. He called it a sandwich. The ISKCON sandwich. I don't know if you can follow that. Sometimes it gets more hectic. Just like to organize this here, Ram Jagannath, is he here? He's not, he's here. How's your sadhana been for the last few days? Doesn't want to answer. He has to look up the word in a dictionary. Sadhana? Oh yeah, I remember that's something I used to do. Yeah, then we become sometimes by necessity it becomes like that. But we have to make sure that our whole life doesn't go on like that. There may be for a few days some necessity by which we are We have less time for hearing and chanting, but it shouldn't be don't make it a lifestyle. Or it may be for some that they have very little taste for sadhana, and then they just do a lot of service. But it's recommended for everyone. Rise early, chant a minimum of 16 rounds. If there is a lot of service, then, and you feel you're not getting enough hearing and chanting, if you're finding it's a regular occurrence in your life, then speak to the devotees who you're serving under and see if the program can be adjusted. That's all. There's no one answer. It'll be different in every case. And it may be that, for instance, if you're building a temple and they're pressing work, just like all the stone comes in from the quarry and someone has to be there to receive it, and it may take several hours to receive it. You have to do the needful also. But at the same time, we shouldn't be so weak if that for some days, if we don't have a regulated program, that we're completely, our whole spiritual life collapses. If you're having a problem, discuss it with the devotees who you're serving under. Okay. Oh, that's a yoga.
Yeah, there's
Okay. Yeah, that's all it is.
there's an addition to the last question that I took regarding cleanliness in Vrindavan. It is Yogamaya who arranges to keep the materialists away from Vrindavan. So does that mean that devotees should take an endeavor to clean Vrindavan, or not make an endeavor to clean Vrindavan? Service to the holy dham is a subset of the category of devotional service known as pada sevanam. And certainly to clean Vrindavan, many of our acharyas, they have given the example that that is their eternal function. So there's no harm in cleaning Vrindavan, but we should understand that even if, of course, it's a very difficult task to clean Vrindavan. You have to sweep in Vrindavan at least 3 times a day to keep it clean. That's not like that in other places, but so it's Krishna's arrangement to keep the materialists away, and it's also Krishna's arrangement to keep the devotees busy. In the spiritual world, Srila Prabhupada said, there's actually no need to sweep because there's nothing dirty in the spiritual world. Still, Lakshmi Sahasrashata Sambrahma Sevyamanam. These Lakshmis are all running around, busy, rendering service, doing these kinds of things. Or to renovate certain holy places of pilgrimage, or to renovate temples, or to maintain Prabhupada's Samadhi Mandir. So many things we can do to keep Vrindavan clean. But it's not for the purpose of our own sense gratification, it's for the purpose of pleasing Guru and Krishna. This is the point. Okay?
About 20 years ago, there was Rancho Prabhu with the World Wildlife Fund made this project for cleaning up Vrindavan and reforesting and putting lots of trees. Did that have any effect?
As I said, you have to sweep Vrindavan thrice a day. It always comes back, just like the dirt in our hearts. Unless we regularly hear and chant every day, it always keeps coming back. Even worse than that is the situation with the Yamuna River. People are always trying to... It's an eternal fight between the demons and the devotees. Yamuna River, 20 years ago, Srivats Goswami, the chief priest of the Radharman temple, he stopped bathing in the Yamuna River, and that broke with a tradition that his ancestors had followed for at least 5 centuries. And it could not have been easy for him to do that. But the Yamuna River was designated by the United Nations as a dead river. And the government of India sets certain pollution guidelines. There's only so much pollution that you can release into the environment, or into the river in this case. And the Yamuna had exceeded that limit by 20 times. It's so carcinogenic that the people who live on the banks of the Yamuna in Brindavan, they are getting cancer at an epidemic rate. And
from
in fact,
bathing, or just from breathing the air?
From being there, from drinking that water, from eating the vegetables nourished by that water. It's to give you an idea of this, about 2 years ago, or maybe 3 years ago, I went to Brahmanda Ghat in Gokula, and I saw from one end of the river to the other end, the other opposite bank, a solid 2-foot-high layer of soap suds. And I looked up and saw the same thing as far as I could see upstream, and the same thing as far as I could see downstream. And I cleared away some of the soap suds in order to take a palmful of water and offer it back into the Yamuna. And the water was dark and sticky, viscous.
Oh.
And it poured out of my hands like that. Why is it like this? Because about 90% of the water in the Yamuna is shunted into agricultural canals as soon as it hits the plains of India. And the remaining 10% all goes to Delhi. In its entirety, it goes to Delhi. And after it has been processed by Delhi, then it's released back into the Yamuna basin. But it has either been processed by a factory or by a human body. The pristine Yamuna is not allowed to flow from the Himalayas to Vrindavan. So that's the current fight in this eternal fight. That's the current battle, I should say, in this eternal war against Maya. And if the devotees don't take part in this effort, then who will? No one else cares. Other people are so gross that they see the Yamuna on the adipautic level only. Here's a river that we can bathe in for sense gratification, or here's a river that we can exploit to build a hydroelectric dam, or here's a river that we can use for whatever reason. Persons who are a little bit more advanced, they can understand that there is some sanctity to this river, and we can benefit spiritually from it. And those who are even further advanced, they recognize that this river is in fact a goddess, and she's very dear to Lord Krishna, and they understand that very deeply. So depending on our level of adhikar, we can take part or we can ignore this problem, but the devotees are really the ones who have to do this. About, maybe 2013, 6 or so years ago, the GBC of ISKCON issued a declaration that all ISKCON temples should emphasize the importance of this problem, and they should hold programs to glorify the Yamuna and to render service unto the Yamuna and to do things to take care of the Yamuna because she's our mother. And it's something that I haven't seen too much of, but some devotees have taken it upon themselves, those devotees who feel this attachment, and particularly attachment to the Yamuna River. Rupa Goswami has glorified her in so many wonderful ways in one of his Sanskrit ashtakams, Yamuna Ashtakam. But it's not just the Yamuna River, it's also the whole Dham and all the places within the Dham, including the temples and including the Leelas Thalis and other aspects of the Holy Dham. So certainly devotees can and should take part of that endeavor.
Devotees like Srivastava Goswami, they're not enraged and they're not trying to do something.
Srivastava Goswami is one of the most active. He's an activist in this regard, more so I think than even Ramesh Baba. I spoke to Radha Jivan about this. Radha Jivan also is sympathetic to such causes. And he told me that this very wealthy Reliance family, Ambani family, he said they're Pushti Margiya Vaishnavas. The Pushti Margiya Vaishnavas in North India, they're particularly attached to the Yamuna River. They should certainly be taking a part in this. They certainly can. They have the money. Richest man in the world at the moment. So, as I said, devotees have to take this seriously. Nobody else has any incentive.
It's their factories which are polluting.
This problem is only 30 years old. Those of you who know Vrindavan may be familiar with the Hindi Pustakwala, Kandilwala bookstore in Purana Bajar. So he said that actually when he was, even 30 years ago only, I also remember 30 years ago, you could take bath in the Yamuna without a problem. The first time I took bath in the river Yamuna was in 1978, and I was diving deep into the water and gulping in large mouthfuls of Yamuna water and swallowing it. That's how pure the water was. He said when he was a boy, you could throw a coin into the Yamuna and watch it sink all the way to the bottom. Now I took a palmful of Yamuna River and I couldn't even see my palm. So but it's not a new problem, and yes, it is only small-scale industries, mainly in Mathura and other places, aside from Delhi. As far as Vrindavan goes, the pollution in Vrindavan is only from small-scale industries that have only been recently introduced there. So if the government agrees, and if the businesses agree to let the government allow some percentage of the original Yamuna water to flow unimpeded from the Himalayas, then the problem can be at least alleviated to a significant degree. That's another thing that's very interesting to consider. A river is considered to be dead when it's no longer flowing. If the water is still or dammed up, it's considered to be like killing the water. It only retains its purity as long as it's flowing. One doctor in the United States, Ayurvedic doctor, told me, don't drink bottled water, distilled water and Bisleti water and other things. He said only drink spring water, because in these other waters they're dead water. Only if you drink spring water is there still some prana within that water. So on that level also, this is adibodic consideration, but on that level also, it's auspicious to allow the river to remain flowing like that.
It's a big topic. We could go on discussing it more and more.
As I said, there are 8 or 9 verses Rupa Goswami has written about this, and each of them is very deep, very deep. Even desiring to bathe in the water of the Yamuna, Rupa Goswami says it is the cause of all auspiciousness. If even a sinful person happens to see the Yamuna River, he's immediately relieved from even the most heinous sins. This is the purity.
What about all those Muslims who came and killed so many people in Vrindavan? They must have seen the Yamuna.
Let's hope so.
Probably made the Yamuna red. They made a big piles of heads.
Yeah.
They got 1 rupee at that time for every head.
It said that, I think it was Aurangzeb, maybe Timurlan, when he sacked Delhi in 1738, he put a post every 10 feet and the roadway from Vrindavan to Delhi, and on top of each post he put a Brahmin's head.
It's not just propaganda. That is not, because the Muslims themselves, the records are there, they wrote it themselves with great alacrity, that what a wonderful thing we've done, and they wrote it down just to keep a record of it. They're very happy. Here also in Srirangam.
1,200 Vaishnavas.
Yeah, 1,200 Vaishnavas were killed by the religion of peace. Does the Supreme Personality of Godhead create the world with the help of Maya? therefore Maya itself, herself, takes care of creating the material world and the Lord is not involved. Aham sarvasya prabhavaha natah sarvam pravartate. Everything comes from Krishna. But he doesn't directly get involved. By his glance. Saikshanam. By his glance, he empowers the material energy to Shrishti Sthiti Pralaya Sadhana Shakti Reka. Chayeva yasya bhuvanani bibharati durga ichhana rupamapi yasya chateshtate sa govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. By the will, by the desire of Krishna, Maya, who acts like a shadow of his potency, oversees the creation, maintenance and destruction of the material world. So Krishna doesn't directly get involved. Just by his desire it goes on, by his desire and empowerment. And Maya, the external energy of the Lord, she personally does that. There are various agents in the creation, the various levels of the creation. Krishna doesn't directly get involved. Okay, you want to take another? There's some more there. Choose your questions. There are a whole bunch. Here I can answer. While you're looking, I'll answer this one. Why do we see politics even among devotees? The answer, I don't know. That's it. That's my answer. Still trying to work it out after all these years. Oh, you don't want to take it?
I'll take the first one.
Okay, but it's your turn.
Should there be books dedicated to discuss pure Vedanta philosophy, like Vedanta Sutras, Shrutis, Upanishads, in addition to Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita? The answer to this, as far as Srila Prabhupada is concerned, is yes. Srila Prabhupada himself wrote a list of works that he intended to translate, and in that list, if I recall correctly, one of them was the Katha Upanishad, and also many other works.
At different times he said different things.
He said different things
Sutras.
at different times.
Yeah.
But in fact, should there be books dedicated to discuss pure Vedanta philosophy, etc.? In fact, there are books dedicated to discussing pure Vedanta philosophy, and the most famous of them is called the Shat Sandarbha by Srila Jiva Goswami. I've just finished editing the Bhagavat Sandarbha. This is a translation and original commentary by Gopi Paranadhana Prabhu. And I was very impressed because the majority of the quotes that Jiva Goswami is using to substantiate his arguments in that book are coming from Vedanta. And he's very deeply considering the ramifications of statements made by Shankaracharya, and he's also amply quoting not only from other Puranas such as Vishnu Purana, but even from the Shruti mantras themselves directly, and from Vedanta Sutra as well. Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy is based on the Srimad Bhagavatam, but Srimad Bhagavatam, we should recall, is itself Vyasadev's own commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. And Vedanta Sutra is the essential pith of all the Vedic literatures. So it's a misconception to think that devotees are only concerned with Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. Or rather, it's a misleading assessment to think that devotees are concerned with something other than Vedanta philosophy in their focus on the Srimad Bhagavatam. For this reason, Srimad Bhagavatam is the essential truth of the Upanishads and Vedanta philosophy, spoken in simple language by Vyasadeva himself for the benefit of those in this Kali Yuga. Krishna swadhamo bhagate dharma jnanadibhisaha kalau nashtatrashamesha puranarko dhanodataha. Srimad Bhagavatam is like the sun. And in the Kali Yuga, you can't really easily enter into any other literature, but Srimad Bhagavatam is fairly easy because it's like the sun. It's hard to miss the sun. At least in Tamil Nadu, it's hard to miss the sun when it rises every day. In God-forsaken places like Seattle, Washington, for 9 months out of the year, you don't see the sun, and sometimes you even forget what it looks like. But we don't have to worry about that here. And similarly, in this world, as long as we have Srila Prabhupada's books, and as long as we have especially this Srimad Bhagavatam, which has arisen in an age when we're all lacking in any kind of good karma and any kind of good jnana, the Srimad Bhagavatam is our only saving grace. So it's quite enough, but in order to understand the Srimad Bhagavatam, sometimes it has to be restated. And for that reason, our Goswamis have compiled so many literatures, authorized literatures on the basis of these Vedic authorities. Shatsandarbha is the main one. Some people say that there are also, Baladev Vidyabhushan also wrote commentaries on other Upanishads, but they're no longer extant.
What should a disciple do when he feels that his spiritual master is misunderstanding him? Should he put an effort to clarify the misunderstanding? What would be the right etiquette? I would suggest that you discuss this with some other devotees first. Generally, the attitude should be that if you think that the spiritual master is misunderstanding him, the general approach should be to think, well, I'm wrong. Not that he's wrong. That's why we accept a guru, right? Isn't it? Because we accept that I don't understand and he understands. So I have to take what he says. So that should be the general attitude. So try to discuss that with some senior devotees. And if you still find you're not satisfied, then you can approach the guru and ask. Should be understood that the gurus, they speak on the basis of Guru, Sadhu and Shastra. So if the guru is saying something which appears to be not in the line of Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, then that is a cause for concern. When you say the spiritual master is misunderstanding, the guru is misunderstanding me, or what is your understanding of who me is? Is it my ego, my identification with my body and prestige and all these things? Spiritual master can't be a spiritual master unless he understands actually who you are. And because we don't understand who we are, therefore we accept a spiritual master. So, that's that. Hare Krishna.
How should Mataji prioritize her duties? Should she serve in the temple and attend all the programs, but do so at the cost of her homely duties? Or should she first take care of her cleaning, cooking, and children, although it does compromise her sadhana and engagement in the temple activities? Both ways it creates a sense of guilt. actually this question is relevant not just to Matajis, it's relevant to pretty much everyone with regarding to our mundane responsibilities. All of us have some duty to perform in this world, and that has to go on. But the ultimate duty is to become Krishna conscious. It looks as if there's a dichotomy here. It looks as if there's you have to do one thing or the other. But actually, if we're expert, we can do both things at the same time. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has asked Arjuna to fight, but he's also asked Arjuna to remember him constantly. And it's possible to do that. This is why we have spiritual masters. This is why we have Shiksha Gurus as well. They can guide us with practical considerations like this. For women in particular, because they have the most important responsibility of raising children. Srila Prabhupada, on one occasion, he told a household couple that you should consider your children to be like deities in the temple. Not that you consider your children to be incarnations, although many parents do, but you should consider them to be as important as the temple deities. Never ever should this be overlooked, because it impacts generations into the future. It is so serious a topic. But at the same time, we should understand that we cannot properly raise our children or perform our ordinary duties unless we're also becoming Krishna conscious. Srila Bilvamangala Thakur has written a very nice verse about this. He says that we can only give sensitive thought to literature, stern thought to philosophy, and ceaseless thought to our duties when our minds are constantly fixed on Krishna. So Bhagavatam says that one should not become a parent. One should not become a guru or a worshipable deva, an authority of any sort, unless able to actually deliver one's subordinates from the entanglement in Mahamaya and take them back to Godhead. So that also has to go on. Exactly how we take our association, exactly how we perform our sadhana, there's some leeway for that on a case-by-case basis. Srila Prabhupada generally encouraged grihasthas to live near the temple and to attend the temple programs, but that's not always possible. Especially here in India, it's nearly impossible to attend the temple every day. Most people are living far away from the temple. But we do have to somehow or other keep in contact with Krishna consciousness. We have to follow the principles. We have to chant our 16 rounds. We have to hear from Srila Prabhupada, either through his books or through his recordings. And we have to somehow or other associate with devotees, more advanced devotees. And in this way, we'll stay on track and be able to perform both of them at the same time. I hope that's okay.
I'm choose something from one of these. The answer to this might be in the Bhagavad Sandarbha, but I'll take one first. Dear Guru Maharaj, I'm a struggling grihastha who is not materially well off to leave my job, and I am not fit to join our farms. What is the hope for me? I feel very useless. That's good. Feeling useless is good. If you feel, yeah, I'm doing great, there's a problem. If we feel that we're totally hopeless, dependent on Krishna's mercy, that's a good start in devotional service. What can you do? Do the best you can. It's very difficult to find an ideal situation in this material world, which in the farms we're trying to make as ideal a situation as we can for practicing Krishna consciousness. It may not be possible for everyone to join them for various physical, mental, economic, or whatever reasons, social reasons. In whatever situation you're in, you do the best you can to serve Krishna. Krishna will be pleased. You'll make gradual advancement. Hare Krishna.
Kauravas, Kamsa have a material relationship with Krishna.
You say that? Eternal? I guess everyone has an eternal. Yeah. Material. Yeah.
The Kauravas and Kamsa have a material relationship with Krishna. How is it material? If it's in connection with Krishna. Devotees in Krishna Lila, like the Pandavas, have relationship with Krishna, and they're Nitya Siddhas from the spiritual world, but it's not so in the case of Kauravas. So how to understand this point? You are having a relationship with Krishna, but it is not eternal. This is a very deep question, actually, and it relates to a question that we heard earlier, in that it expands upon that theme. In the Brihad Bhagavatamritam, there's a very interesting passage in which Rohini and Balaram are sitting amidst the queens of Dwarka, and they are reminiscing about Vrindavan Leela, because in Dwarka, only Rohini was a participant. Rohini and Balaram, aside from Krishna, were participants in the Vraj Leelas. So Rohini is glorifying.
They're the only ones in Dwarka. They're the only ones in Dwarka who know about that.
In old age, they were living in Dwarka, but the residents of Dwarka were curious, therefore, to hear about Krishna Leela, which no one there had experienced other than these two. So Rohini was glorifying the Vrajavasis. And Kamsa's mother, Padmavati, was also in that assembly. And Kamsa, because after all, she's family. Even her son is Kamsa, but family is family. So they see it in this way. So she's glorifying the Vrajavasis and the depth of their love for Krishna. Rohini is glorifying the depth of the Vrajavasis' love for Krishna. But Padmavati, Kamsa's mother, she was becoming visibly impatient the more she heard this glorification of the Vrajavasis. And you could see, anyone there could see, that she was not happy with what she was hearing, and she's shaking her head, and she's kind of fidgeting, and finally she couldn't help it anymore. She just had to burst out, and she attacked Rohini verbally, and she said, "You don't know anything about these Vrajavasis and how abusive they were to this boy Krishna." And everyone was shocked about hearing this. And Padmavati then went on to say that they were so cruel to Krishna that they made him go out and take care of hundreds and thousands of cows all by himself. And they didn't even give him any shoes to wear when he went out to take care of these cows. And it was hot sun, and even the gopis were worried that he would prick his feet on thorns, and they didn't care. In fact, they didn't even feed him anything, and that's why he had to go and steal from the neighbors in order to get something to eat. And she's going on and on and on like this, in some kind of ecstasy that I personally don't understand. But because after all, this is Kamsa's mother. But the significant point about it is that in the spiritual world, there are different kinds of relationships. And everyone is somehow or other engaged in that Leela. Someone may be taking a role within the Leela that appears to be antithetical or opposed. And Kamsa, of course, was in that position, and his mother, one would assume, is also in that position, although evidently she has some attachment to Krishna, even though he killed her son. So there are all different kinds in the spiritual world. And something we can consider about this is a verse that's fairly often quoted by our acharyas from the 11th canto. They say Paraswabhava karmani na prashamsen na garhayat. You should neither praise nor criticize the conditional nature and the conditional activities of others, either in this world or in that world. Instead, one should appreciate, it says, Vishvam ekatmakam pashyan prakritya purushena cha, that this whole dazzling array of variegated activity is going on as a result of the harmonious interplay between Purusha and Prakriti. Purusha and Prakriti. This is two big philosophical terms that have many different ways to interpret, but at the deepest level we can say Purusha represents the Supreme Personality of Godhead and Prakriti represents his internal potency, Srimati Radharani. So even in the spiritual world, there are members of Krishna's Leela who seem to be employed in a mundane relationship with the Lord, but actually it's not so, as the question stated, because there's nothing mundane about Krishna's Leela. Krishna and his abode and his pastimes and his entourage, of which they're a part, and his eternal associates, they're all not different. They're all manifestations of the Ananda Chinmaya Rasa, and they have different parts to play in Krishna's Leela. Some of them appear to be anti-party, and some of them appear to be favorable, but it takes all kinds, and Krishna enjoys all kinds. So, aside from that, we can say that in terms of Raganuga Bhakti, Srila Rupa Goswami gives us two categories. One is called Sambandhanuga, and the other one is called Kamanuga. The Kamanuga Bhaktas are generally the gopis of Brindavan. They're worshipping Krishna in Madhurya Rasa, and they are motivated by their own spontaneous, pure devotion for the Lord. Everyone else, or at least his relatives, they fall into this category called Sambandhanuga. They're following according to their relationship, and there are different kinds. But they're all eternally liberated souls, and even if they don't agree with that, even if they feel like they're conditioned souls, and in my reading of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it looks to me like virtually all of Krishna's Nitya Siddha Upanishads feel like they're conditioned souls. This is how the Leela goes on. Because just like we said with regard to the Vrajavasis, the question is how to understand this, that you're having a relationship with Krishna but it's not eternal. Some participants in Krishna's Leela, they're going back to Godhead at the end of this life. Some are already coming from the spiritual world. Some are demigods just participating for a short term, like the sons of Kuvera. In this way, there are different categories also. But regarding Krishna's pastimes, anyone who is participating in Krishna's pastimes is considered to be on the spiritual platform. You want to add anything to that?
Yeah, when we say that Duryodhana has a material relationship with Krishna, but the eternal relationship with Krishna of everyone is Nitya Das. So that Duryodhana's relationship with Krishna, because he doesn't recognize that he's Nitya Das, then it's not an eternal relationship. We're all in the Duryodhana situation in this material world. We either don't like Krishna, or we've forgotten Krishna, or we're turned away from Krishna. And Krishna reciprocates. If we want to forget Krishna, he gives us the intelligence to forget him. But that's not our eternal relationship with him. So because someone acts inimically to Krishna, it doesn't mean that he's going to be inimical forever, because that's not the eternal position, constitutional position, the swarup of the jiva. So where's it written? That paper? Yeah. So Krishna's pastimes in the material world, they're not exactly like those in the spiritual world. His dealing with the demons is different. There are no demons in the spiritual world. Yeah, the Pandavas are eternally perfect devotees, but not the Kauravas. Yeah, so you have a relationship with Krishna, but it's not eternal. Yeah, so it's an Mayic relationship. It's an illusory relationship. It's not the actual relationship. Pishachi paile jaina mati channa hoy maya grasta jiva hoy shay bhavuday. Just like a person haunted by a ghost. You may have seen a child beats his parents as if he hates them because he's haunted by a ghost. But that's not his actual relationship with the parents. But because his consciousness has been overtaken by that which is foreign to him, therefore he behaves like that. Yeah, do you want to do another one? I'll do a short one. What is correct? Hari Haraye Nama Krishna Yadavaya Nama, or Haraye Nama Krishna. Technically should be Haraye Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namaha. Often the word Hari is put before it, but the actual chant given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and then expanded by Narottam Das Thakur is Haraye, which means, anyway it means unto Hari. Right? Namaha is often to Hari. Is that right? Yeah. Okay, you want to say another one? You want to choose another one?
Is chanting the holy name with attention enough to go back to Goloka Vrindavan? Or is it not possible to go back home, back to Godhead, until the attachment to the material world remains? I think this means, is it impossible to go back to Godhead as long as you have some attachment to the material world? Or is chanting...
If you're chanting purely, you don't have attachment to the material world.
That's right. That is the answer.
I'm chanting purely, but I still have lots of attachments. And that's why we have to hear the class and read the books also to understand what these terms mean.
You're not chanting with attention if you're thinking about other things sometime.
The rasa of eternally liberated devotees is generally fixed as either Dasa or Madhurya or something in between, I guess. But when we read the Prabandham, we see that one Alva praises the Lord simultaneously in two rasas. How can we understand it? Well, I don't know what's in the Prabandhams, I can't comment, but there may be devotees of mixed rasas also, and they exhibit different moods at different times. Just like Balaram, he's basically in a friendly relationship with Krishna. But sometimes he takes a more protective mood, something as the older brother, because he's the elder brother, so there's an element of Vatsalya rasa. And then sometimes he thinks, well, after all, Krishna's more important than me. He's Krishna's too big, and then he takes a role of servant. So it is possible to have different moods, but there is a consideration of rasa bhas also. That, for instance, it's given in Nectar of Devotion, right? That to have madhurya ras mixed with this feeling of disgust about the material world, it doesn't fit. I'm feeling so disgusted when I think of sex in this material world. I feel totally disgusted, so I think I'll go and kiss Krishna. It doesn't mix very well. Yeah, do you want to?
What is the standard of cleanliness for a woman during her monthly period? Is she allowed to go for the temple or festival functions, or should she stay at home? This
question, no one would have even thought of asking it
yeah.
1 or 2 generations ago.
This is an interesting point. I will regard an anecdote that you will not hear anywhere else, because as far as I know, it's never been written down. I've learned a lot of things like this from my god sister Govinda Dasi.
Oh, yeah.
Govinda Dasi told me that when she was in this position, she asked Srila Prabhupada...
She was one of the, just for clarification, she was one of the earliest disciples of Srila Prabhupada, and she was with her husband personally serving him.
So this was way back in maybe 1968 or something when she was serving Srila Prabhupada. And she asked Srila Prabhupada what she should do, because she had read in the Nectar Devotion that a woman should avoid the temple during the periods of contamination. So Srila Prabhupada told her, he gave her the whole list of things. You have to live in a separate place, you can't leave for 3 days, you have to avoid touching anything, avoid dealing with anyone, adi, adi, adi. And Govinda Dasi said she just could not believe all this restriction. Being a young Western woman, she couldn't accommodate it, and she frankly told Srila Prabhupada that this was the case. And Srila Prabhupada looked at her and he considered her condition, and then he said, okay, you just chant Hare Krishna. Something to that effect. He gave her a very much reduced list of rules and regulations. But Govinda Dasi told me, this is many years ago, maybe only 20 years ago or so, some 30 years after the fact, she said that she felt guilty about this because, on account of her, an entirely different pramana, if you will, had been set for ISKCON on the basis of this interaction. We know from Bhagavad Gita that whatever the great people do, sayat pramanam kurate, they, just by acting, if you are great, you set pramanas for those beneath you or those who follow you. Anyone in any position in society has to be aware of this, because we all have people who are under us and we all have people who are over us. But modern society is remarkably insensitive of this fact, that we have to be conscious of the example that we set. So 20 or 30 years later, Govinda Dasi became conscious of this, and she was remorseful about it.
She spent time in India.
She didn't spend so much time in India, so she wouldn't have known these things. But she did.
Wasn't she associated with some?
Yeah. Eventually, she came to understand what the real standard is by associating with other Brahminical persons here in India. And so then she felt like she had made a great mistake, and that in fact her example had set the current trajectory that ISKCON devotees find, especially in the Western countries where there is no such thing as an established aitiham or shishtachara, sadachara. So Srila Prabhupada's books are very clear about this. The Dharma Shastras, the Smriti Shastras are very clear about what has to happen. And we can follow these things, and unless we are not interested. That's another matter. But Srila Prabhupada generally encouraged in the last few years that he was on this planet, an increasing degree of adherence to vidhi standards, not only in terms of deity worship, and across the board. His guidance of ISKCON was...
Rishikesh and Manohar. Don't talk now. You should listen.
Srila Prabhupada's guidance in the last few years that he was on this planet increasingly focused generally across the board on adhering to vidhis. Preset standards, they're found in the Shastra. His emphasis on following Varnashram conventions is consistent with this emphasis that he gave. His regularization and standardization of deity worship within ISKCON, which happened especially within the last few years, from about 1974 on, it was also consistent with this. And he was increasingly emphasizing the importance of Shastric restrictions, timeless restrictions that we've inherited from our heritage. It was a part of what I see as what he called the process of boiling the milk in ISKCON. After 1970, when Srila Prabhupada got the Los Angeles temple, and he had a Western world headquarters that was significant enough to consider as such, he emphasized the necessity of training the devotees who had joined ISKCON. And up until that time, there were many, many devotees who were very interested by what they had read in Srila Prabhupada's books, but they were not practically trained in how to deal with one another, how to deal with life, how to act in this world, how to discriminate, as we discussed earlier, between their worldly responsibilities and their spiritual responsibilities. So Srila Prabhupada introduced a great deal of personal training at this point. And this kind of thing is within the category that Prabhupada was emphasizing in those years. So it's been noted by some gurus in ISKCON, who are not present here tonight, that in modern day ISKCON, the spiritual masters are not able to train their disciples in that way. And Srila Prabhupada was aware of the problem and did what he could to correct the problem, but it seems as if the trajectory has been set and is currently spinning out of control.
Well, Hare Krishna. Give the sound. Well, I'm Hare Krishna. I'm a spiritual master in ISKCON, and I'm clear on this.
So the easy answer to the question is that you do whatever your spiritual master tells you to do.
It'd be a good idea if the spiritual masters would actually get a little deep into the culture also.
This is the problem. I won't mention any names, but this guru is a grahasta, and he told me that there's a big epidemic now that spiritual masters in ISKCON don't train their disciples. They can't train their disciples in many cases. There are just too many of them. They're physically unable to do it. Srila Prabhupada deliberately trained up very well a few key personalities, and those personalities have tried to do their best to train others, but not all of them.
Therefore, this Vaishnava culture and etiquette book,
yes,
should be done. At least it's there. But actually, I see that many, even leaders in ISKCON, they have this, what do they call this? The physically challenged and mentally challenged. They're culturally challenged. I just said that in a talk a couple of days ago before the camp began here. That I was speaking with Bhakti Vidya Purna Maharaj, who's had many years trying to introduce concepts of Vedic culture to Western devotees, and he told me that it's like trying to explain colors to a colorblind person. But then I thought about it and thought, actually it's not, because when Srila Prabhupada was here, devotees, they were into, we're going to establish Varnashram and Vedic culture, writing articles in Back to Godhead, the roles of a woman, according to what's in Shastra. It's not that they couldn't understand, they willfully adopted something else. They took the allowances that Srila Prabhupada gave to Govinda Dasi and others and took that this should be the rule. Just like the wife of one of my disciples, she's from Gujarat, he's from Gujarat. They live in America. He told me this. She was outside the temple one day, and it is in Denver, Colorado, and a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, Mataji, you can imagine who he is. She said, well, why don't you come inside? Why are you standing outside? I said, no, I can't come in now. Why not? I said, I'm in my monthly prayer. Why are you going against Prabhupada? Prabhupada didn't institute that. You must come in. She was really, she was distraught because on the one hand, she knows that you're not supposed to go in the temple during that time. On the other hand, there's a devotee very senior to her who she respects telling her that she's going against Prabhupada by not going in. So Srila Prabhupada made an allowance, and then they take it like that should be the rule.
An injunction.
And if you don't follow it, you're going to hell. Anyway, it's a big topic. I'll just take one more quickly, and then we can finish for now. It's a big topic. And now, anyway, Hare Krishna. In ISKCON, we are given a balanced program of both sadhana and service. You see, someone said, there you go. Someone said it's not balanced, and someone else says it is balanced. So your own experience might not be all in all. But as becoming older, we have difficulty in doing many services. Is it correct just to concentrate on sadhana? Srila Prabhupada himself said that I want to go on till fighting for Krishna up to the last breath like Arjuna. But he didn't, and that's a glorious example to follow. But he also, for instance, in purport in the Srimad Bhagavatam, he said we are making facilities in Vrindavan so people can come and retire in Vrindavan. He told Burijan Prabhu, who he sent out with a very difficult service to preach in Hong Kong, that you go on preaching till the age of 50, then you retire in Vrindavan. So if you have the strength and the energy and the inspiration, you can go on preaching up to the last breath. But you can also retire at some point and chant Hare Krishna. That's also a kind of preaching, to show that in the later part of life we cannot be absorbed in bhajan. And it's also good that some devotees should do that, because to be absorbed in hearing and chanting is our aim. We have a lot of services to do to spread Krishna consciousness, but it's also good that it can be seen that there are some devotees who are actually, they are absorbed in that. And they're not just running around here and there because you have to do something to keep busy, otherwise you'll fall in Maya. So it can be also. But then the life of bhajan is also not a life of sleeping. Then one has to be absorbed in that. So Hare Krishna, we can finish there. And for now, nice questions. Good questions, great answers. And we can continue tomorrow, Krishna willing. And these can be kept for now. And if there are more written questions, we can do that. And tomorrow we can do Harinam. We'll go for Kaveri Snan also, as we did last year and the year before. But I can just discuss that with Ram Jagannath Prabhu, exactly. Because we could go to the Rajgopuram and come back, or we could just go around this area, whatever. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.